Okay, you are live.
I hope I'm live.
I hope
If
you're
I'm
live too.
inanimate,
We haven't seen
that would be
anybody.
a problem.
So, I hope you're live too. We haven't seen anybody yet.
That's unusual. Are we sure we sent out everything?
Yeah.
Can you get on your smartphone and see if the live stream is there?
Yes.
This is quite unusual.
Do we right now? Well, somebody showed up.
There's somebody.
Hi, Colorado Drone Adventures. How are you?
Yeah. That's a new one. Don't recognize that.
Yeah, we got 4 watching right now, supposedly.
Okay.
Including me.
We just started. We're running a little bit late getting all the setup done because we were gone for the weekend and got a bunch of theoretically data that we're trying to go through. And
Hi, Brian.
hi, honey bunny.
Hi, honey bunny.
And so Eva and Chris were working till 20 minutes ago or something.
Yeah, Brian says my other ID. So that's your other ID, huh? That's cool.
Yeah. That's why I was confused, because that was you on your smartphone there. Okay. That's what I was wondering. Anyhow, so we were up in Butte for 3 days. Eva did some research at the Bureau of Mines, and theoretically they're supposed to send us a bunch of information. I'm not sure, A, how helpful it will be, and B, whether they sent what Eva thought they were supposed to send it. There seems to be a little confusion on that point.
Hi, Juan. How's things down in Phoenix? Hello, Rick Nick.
And so that's a little bit confused right now.
Any day with a drone is an adventure, Brian.
You probably saw my video I put up from the Granite Mountain Fire Memorial. And that gives you an idea of the size of the operation there at Butte. And here is an example of a rock we picked up. Nothing in particular special about it. This is all pyrites. Seems to be mainly iron pyrite in there. And this is kind of what that whole mountain is built on. Lauren had some work with a company over there is doing some preliminary work, and I was helping him out do some as a very preliminary work before they really start getting into high gear advanced work.
Juan says it's the final day of summer. So happy now.
I don't feel like summer here.
Yeah, we're going to be in 20s and 30s at night here. So there is that.
It's feeling all wintry already.
Yeah, the piece of rock he just showed you actually belongs to me, of course, because I am the person with the cool rocks.
Well, you were the one doing the looking around. Lauren and I were busy trying to get stuff done,
yeah,
which we accomplished a pretty good amount, and it was a very interesting trip. We we just had real fun. I can't really discuss much right now. I don't know how much confidentiality. It got to 82. Okay. Hi, Jean-Francois.
Hi, Jean-Francois.
82, huh? And in Arkansas, that's probably pretty humid. So, anyhow, it's a very, very interesting location. It would be nice if we could find something novel of that nature, but the chances are pretty small. Um, Hi, Shane, Chris.
Hi, Shane. Hi, Jean-Francois. And yeah, Chris, that frozen white stuff. Oh, by the way, weren't you looking for pyrites for somebody, Chris? If that was you looking for pyrites for somebody, let us know. I have some. Oh, Brian says he's working on a 1,000-pound reduced to 100-pound leach as we speak.
Yeah,
100 pounds of concentrate. Excellent.
yeah.
Let us know how that goes. Where we are in our current experiments, I'm going to be getting back to digesting this stuff that I have. And we're going to be stripping another cartridge here very shortly. Ah, Chris, that was you looking for pyrites. Well, shoot us an email. We've got pyrites.
Anyhow, so the 1,000 liter test, we are still waiting for the laboratory analysis because he got buried under a lot of work. And when you have large regular customers and you have small occasional customers, guess who gets priority?
And that is totally understandable.
Nothing wrong with that, but it's like, so we're kind of waiting on results. We have a bead.
Brian says he's pre-leaching with hydrochloric acid and sodium percarbonate. Cool.
Is that to break down the pyrites, Brian? So, so we have a gold bead, but we have nothing to compare it against. We're also doing some other testing we had 2 partially loaded resin cartridges that we were trying. Interestingly enough, it seemed as if
Hi, Kodak.
it seemed as if it took longer to strip one of the partially loaded cartridges than the 1,000 liter.
Brian
cartridge.
says, yep. And yeah, Brian, how many pounds per pre-leach per or?
Have you even looked inside that?
I have not yet.
Okay.
I'm trying to get.
Got no idea, huh? Okay. I was just wondering what was left in there because there's the possibility from some previous testing that the resin tends to grab silver right away, but then the silver gets kicked off
No, that's not the right picture.
by other materials. So we're running on the assumption that this partially loaded resin that we're stripping right now may be high in silver. So we're going to have to do a few little additional steps to try and define that pretty well. And in case it's significant, we haven't really done anything more on the film right now because we've just been too busy doing other stuff. And the next 2 weeks we have additional complications in that we are going to be observing the counting of the absentee ballots here in Lewis and Clark County. And we'll also be observers at the polls on election day. So that means we got some other stuff that's going to get complicated.
Brian says 100 pounds of magnetic concentrates, 25 gallons of water, 2 gallons of hydrochloric, and 2 pounds of sodium percarbonate. Wow, that is going to do some serious cleaning. 120 degrees and of that. Jean-Francois, I am still trying to find time to work more on my x-ray experience. I absolutely want to get back to that like this coming week.
Well, we should be. You got everything here, don't you?
Yeah, I just need a safe place in the bathroom to set it up.
Yeah, I would suggest just use a reasonable strength solution and do it in the kitchen. You know? Although right now with the
Counter space in the kitchen is beyond,
well, the other thing is closed up right now and shut down.
Jean-Francois says, I grabbed from the sidewalk an old swimming pool filter tank. He's got a whole bunch of x-ray film that's stuck together, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
He's got 2 to 3 cubic feet of them. They got wet, a lot are stuck together. I may use a branches clipper with flowing water to prevent plastic fusing. You know, I have to wonder, because I know in the past with film, like camera film, when it got wet once and got stuck together, you could separate it by soaking it in hot water. My grandmother had it happen a couple of times with film negatives, and they just came apart. But I don't know if that would happen with x-ray film. I'm not going to experiment to find out.
Easy to test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honey Bunny, I'll tell you, it's amazing the things people freaking throw out. It's ridiculous.
Yep.
Well, we're not going to use a wood chipper. I want to get a crosscut shredder. It's not like they're expensive.
Yeah, we don't have a problem with it being stuck together, so we can feed it in as individual sheets without too much trouble.
Oh, Chris says hot water will pretty well destroy the emulsion. The question is, Chris, would that make it impossible to recover the silver? And yeah, Brian, a washing machine would probably work.
Well, if you did it with the hot diluted nitric acid.
Honey says she'd burn the film in a sealed container and refine the ashes. Don't know about that.
Possible. You have to be very careful on that. Because if you didn't actually oxidize and burn the film, you'd wind up fusing it, which would then tend to lock away the silver in an impenetrable plastic matrix. You definitely have to test that on a small scale first. If you can actually ash it effectively.
Jean-Francois says he tried soaking, it works, but it takes a long time.
As long as you're not busy, time isn't a problem.
Yeah, that's my take on the issue.
Yeah.
Chris says no problem recovering the survey if you do. And Honey says silver oxide's just fine.
Well, I just meant you need to make sure you don't just melt the plastic, but you actually ash it.
Mr. Virtue asked to refine the acid, yeah. Yeah, film is nitrocellulose, though, Honey says. So, yeah.
That should oxidize pretty easily.
Hi, Lars. How are you?
Hey, Lars. So.
Yeah, but basically, we had an interesting weekend over in Butte. We did a lot of history. I did research over there. Chris says, throw it in thio. Yep.
Thio, is that going to dissolve metallic silver? Silver chloride it's going to get. I don't know.
Honey says it's more prone to explode if it's done wrong.
Yeah. That's the nitro part of the nitro.
Film hasn't been nitrocellulose since the 40s. Well, if I ever get lucky enough to run into some 1940s film, I'll remember that. Yeah, we had an interesting time over in Butte. I did get some research done at the Bureau of Mines and Geology. Not as much as I would have liked, because unfortunately their system is not amenable to people doing their own research. And the librarians were very, very, very busy. So hopefully, if I go back and forth with the librarian often enough by email, I may actually get what I wanted. That's a very unpleasant system. But I do have the actual website that I can use as well that deals with their documents. So my plan this coming week is if I can get enough time on his computer to do it, I will sit down on the freaking Montana Bureau of Mines and Geology website, and I will go to their documents section, and I will go through item by item and get everything that I want that's already there. And then they can send me the rest. Chris says iodine and bromine leach. See Farmer's Reducer. Kodak says he likes explosions, opening up cracks filled with yellow metal. Brian asks if nitrocellulose is used in ping pong balls.
Not to my knowledge.
Jean-Francois says this is why we now see safety film, quote unquote, on film, because it's now cellulose acetate.
Okay. Anyhow.
Well, regardless, it was a good trip to Butte, and down in the truck, since he didn't bring them up, I have all kinds of interesting things that I picked up in various places when we were wandering around.
Bringing them up is not that easy, as it's well over 100 pounds of material she managed to gather. That's why
I got a 90-degree eye bolt, dude. I mean, we're talking and insulators. I mean, I got cool stuff.
Yeah. And yeah, it was a very interesting trip.
Jean-Francois says ping pong balls are still nitrocellulose as far as I know. Bizarre. Bizarre and unaccountable. But anyway, there is a rock, and I have a couple of pictures here. I'm going to see if I can get one of them up to show you. I have a couple of pictures that I just bought up. So let me get in here. So this is a picture of some of the cool cores that I found. How much film can I get? At the moment, I have access to about 400 pounds of it, Kodak. I'm going to work on finding more.
A reported 400 pounds.
Reported 400 pounds. Now, what we have in this picture is I have some nice pieces of broken core that were from a random dump that I had access to. This here, this gray speckly stuff, is the host rock in the Butte area. Now, when you look at this stuff under a loupe, that is not mica. It's really, really sparkly in person. It's not mica. That has an iridescent sheen to it. So I'm thinking it's some sort of a metallic something or other. Dude here says it might be a hornblende or something. Hello, Red Wing. And on the far side of this picture, on the far left, you can just see some of the other little random rocks that I found, which I was happy with. So that was that. But yeah, I got some really nice cores. I found some old insulators. I found a 90-degree eye bolt, which is really big, really rusty, and really cool. So there is that. This is all the great, fantastic stuff that I found that he thought was boring, so he left it in the car. Go figure. Chris says probably hornblende. So out of curiosity, Chris, how well does this stuff polish? Because I'll tell you, it's sparkly as heck as it sits right now.
It's the stuff you normally find in granite, the black stuff. Yeah.
Kodak says, now if you could get access to the developers, maybe more silver than the film, or than film. Yeah. That's another thing I'm looking at, Kodak, because people seem to think that everybody has gone digital on X-rays, and the more I look around, the more it turns out that a whole lot of people haven't gone digital on X-rays. So go figure.
Anyhow, so that's kind of our current state of advance. As far, not a whole lot, so we were really waiting.
Chris said, sometimes you get tourmalines, don't I wish? Well, I'm just looking at this host rock, and it's just so pretty. Jimmy's
Jimmy.
here, and he says, hi, guys, no luck hunting. It's too warm. How's your eye?
He polished off a little more of the rust stain, and I'm going to have an appointment with a specialist, about 2 weeks or so?
Yeah. Something
And
like
they'll
that.
take a look at it, see what might be. They are redoing the glasses again right now, and we haven't tried the new ones on. So we shall see in terms of how good is it. Less than ideal. Still functional.
Hold up that pyrite again and show everybody that missed it. Pyrite.
This rock is pretty heavy.
Oh yeah, that's not the heaviest one I had in the car. I had a couple that were denser than that.
Yeah. But anyhow, so without the solution analyses, we really can't go much further on that 1,000-liter test. We do have a bead, we have a number, but we have nothing to compare that to. And I say that's basically where we're at. And
Chris says it's the fixer that has the silver in the processor, but X-ray film leaves a lot more of the silver in the film than you'd expect from normal imaging.
okay.
Mr. Virtue says, gorgeous rock. Yeah, that is a really nice little pyrite seam in there. You wouldn't believe the pretty
The
pyrites
other
I
side
got
is less clearly
downstairs.
defined, but it's wider.
You would not believe the pyrites on some of the rocks I have down in the back of the truck. Pretty. Kodak says the closest he gets is silver from keyboards. Ooh,
Yep.
there's silver in keyboards?
I think that's what the
Yeah.
contacts are made out of, but I'm
Oh, is that all keyboards or just some keyboards?
I think
Inquiring mind wants to know. Chris says run film through some concentrated ammonia solution.
Anyhow, so as I say, that's where we're at with all of our stuff at the moment. And
Yeah, Kodak looks like a sandwich.
Yep.
It actually does. I had a couple of other
Yeah, it does.
pieces that were like that too.
and
Really, it's really pretty in the sunlight. I've got some pieces that are something else.
don't know how many more field trips up to top of the hill we're going to get this year, if any. It's starting to get pretty cold. As long as there's no snow, it shouldn't be a deal breaker, just be uncomfortable. But say we're watching the weather carefully, because at any time we may get us a hard deadline where we got to get that mill shut down and all the solutions dumped into the pond.
Brian says
etc.
he's been researching aerogels made from milk as a highly effective and selective gold collector.
That's pretty weird.
Really now? Kodak says sheets of plastic kind of like film. I'm assuming you mean in terms of keyboards. Yeah. Lead, copper, silver, and gold metals dissolve in ammonia.
Hmm.
Yeah. How concentrated do you need the ammonia, though?
We also did a little research on that Granite Mountain fire, and apparently they were redoing an electrical system underground, and were loading in the new power cable down the shaft, which got away from them.
Chris says, yeah, Cassian, it makes sense.
And it wound up in a heap in the middle of the shaft there, as they send down some guys to work on the issue. At the time, carbide lamps were the source of light, and the cable was made of copper wire wrapped in oiled rag and then covered with a lead sheathing to protect it. And because the lead sheathing had been damaged, and they were using, open flame basically to see with, the insulation caught fire, and the rest is history.
John Francois says, where exactly is the silver in keyboards? And he's been thinking electrocardiogram connection electrodes. I have a hunch they contain silver. I wondered about that as well, John Francois. Shane says he finished yesterday at 5 p.m., 26,273 acres total, 6 since Thursday. Worst damn cold he's had since COVID. Well, I hope you get to feeling better, Shane, and that's a hell of a lot of acres.
That's a lot of acres, man.
And Honey says it's the thin plastic films of the keyboard where you get the silver. Kodak says global warming in Minnesota, 70 degrees tomorrow for a mobile brake job. Brian says he may try to make aerogel pucks that fit in the standard house water filters. Now that would be cool.
That would be wild. Yeah.
Shane says here's one way I thought about separating that might work the silver from the plastic, so we'd like to find out. But everybody is chatting all at once.
Yeah.
We are discussing colds, silver film from keyboards, possible silver in electrocardiogram electrodes. And nobody was paying attention to your little thing about the fire. So congratulations.
Okay.
Now, actually, the memorial up there was really, really well put together.
Well done. Yeah. Right.
Shane says, hook it up like a battery charger and see what happens. Hook it between a positive and a negative and see what happens. 9-volt battery.
Hook what up?
Sheets of silver, I guess. Sheets of the plastic sheets with silver on them.
Well, I'm sure it would come off, but we can get it off.
Honey
in 3
says
seconds.
sodium silicate, water glass, diluted in water, dried with acetone and compressed liquid CO2 makes a high purity aerogel.
Yeah.
Jean-Francois seems like the current keyboard manufacturing is, instead of individual silver contacts, one plastic sheet to be under the whole keyboard. The fire that the memorial was about, Kodak, the Granite Spectator Mine Fire.
Granite Mountain Speculator Fire.
The largest hard rock mining metals disaster in mining history. 168 died.
Coal tends to have big
Yeah.
disasters because you're looking through
Jean-Francois
material.
says he tried film in Eco Goldex and it worked.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprising. That'd be an interesting test subject for that.
And
standardization.
Shane says, yeah, but I seemed to go from the runny nose to the chest to the headache. And he's still battling it.
Could be one of the new.
Jean-Francois says Eco Goldex also strips gold from porcelain tableware.
Yeah. Shane, you might want to assume it may be one of the newer versions of COVID a little bit too, or your immune system's compromised. Make sure you're getting plenty of vitamin D. Without vitamin D, your immune system cannot do its business. So that's...
Yeah, Jean-Francois says the E version of Eco Goldex.
Uh-huh.
And Brian says, yeah, Eco versus film. That would be a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, fire, fire, fire. Beavis and Butthead. Yep.
Well, I say that because the fire was in the shaft, it trapped a lot of people, and the smart ones that survived went down, got into some large pockets of fresh air, and then bulkheaded themselves off and waited for rescue, basically. But yeah, 168 people died. And that was quite unfortunate. When you're looking at that video, the big head frame and the hole directly in front, that was in fact the Granite Mountain head frame. And the building was where they would, sawmill stuff, but that head frame was the Granite Mountain head frame. It's my understanding that the Speculator head frame is now buried under dumps and stuff. But yeah, that was a big deal. And that whole area is just Swiss cheese with tunnels. The standard figure is there's over 4,000 miles of tunnels under Butte. And there's a widely reputed to be true story of a mining engineer that managed to walk all the way from Butte to Anaconda, which is about 8 or 9 miles, without ever seeing sunlight. by just going from one mine to another. A lot of these mines, the workings were interconnected for a variety of reasons. But one that was kind of interesting was Lauren showed us a decline that he said goes about 5 miles under Butte at about a 15% grade, and that was dug for the sole purpose of avoiding tax, because the city of Butte decided this was too much money stream to ignore, so they enacted a tax on every ton of ore brought to the surface within city limits. So they just went outside the city limits and drove a decline so that there was a number of mines were all just shipping their ore up this decline. I haven't independently verified it, but Lauren's usually pretty accurate. But that just...
Well, it would not surprise me. I mean,
no, exactly. You know?
And I don't have the picture available in this computer right now, but I actually have a picture of a mine map that was used in a landmark apex rule court case that is over there in Butte right now that shows just how complicated the whole system is down there. And yeah, Resort Dog, God bless American Spirit, because this mine, if I think about it, I'll get into my phone and get it uploaded for next week. The mine map was necessary for the court case because they needed to prove that a particular company did indeed have the apex of a particular vein. And when you're dealing with a hill that is Swiss cheese, there is more voids in this hill now than there is solid material.
In places.
In places. That is a little bit ridiculous.
Well,
Shane says he still thinks we should take a piece of that film and arc it across a 9-volt battery and see what happens. Yeah.
we could try.
We could probably light a light bulb. And yeah, it does not surprise me that there have been some big apex fights in Montana,
Oh, yeah.
Brian. I mean, Butte especially, the richest hill on earth, and it is indeed. As a matter of fact, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to look something up real quick on this computer, and I will probably be dropping a link in the comments.
The Verdigris project?
Yeah,
Okay.
I just
Yeah,
want to make sure I get the...
it's in my email.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, that is a just recipe for not disaster but conflict when you've got different mines owned by different people, and apparently there were two big powerful people. They called them the Copper Kings. Forget their names, but these guys hated each other's guts. They hated the horse they rode in on. They hated the reflection of the other person in the, they just hated each other. And they both had a lot of money, and they both had a lot of power.
I think that's how we ended up with Helena as the capital, because one of them,
Yeah, they couldn't, they didn't want to put it in a place where one or the other of them
Yeah.
would have advantage.
Resort Dog says there's a great vein system model in the McKay School of Mining Museum at UNR showing 2 in 1. 2 in the one hill. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. I love opals.
Yeah.
Opals are gorgeous.
But it is a real mess over there in Butte. There's, again, apocryphal stories that every year or two somebody's house disappears.
Resort Dog says I just got a letter from the AML to fence off my ancient holes. Well,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
oh, there are plenty of holes in Butte that need to be fenced off. I'll tell you, you would not believe some of the things.
Well, a lot of
I
them
mean,
have been-
that is one of the
Cow.
funnier. That is one of the funnier parts of Butte. I mean, we're going to this place that is a mine, quote unquote. We're driving down city streets between little mobile homes and houses and around corners and all this stuff. Butte, Montana, indeed, Mr. Virtue, the richest hill on earth. And we're sitting there at a, quote, mine that's surrounded by houses, mobile homes with 5G cell reception.
Yep. Oh, it's
Resort
good luck.
Dog says, I think I may just send him the $15 and say, you're whole.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure they'd appreciate that. Yeah, Mr. Virtue, what I wrote up above there in the comments about the Verdigris project, that is really worth looking up, is verdigrisproject.org. It's a whole series of 1-hour radio programs where they interviewed really old folks in Butte back in the day before they all died about what it was actually like.
By the way, did you ever look up verdigris? Say, I think it's the
No,
oxidized coating on copper.
I have not actually looked up verdigris. I will look it up now, just so. A bright bluish-green incrustation or patina formed on copper or glass by atmospheric oxidation.
Yeah.
Basic
That's-
copper carbonate. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
But anyway, it's a really interesting series about Butte that takes it through the whole, the history of Butte and why it is, in fact, the richest hill on earth.
Yeah.
They have another saying up there. They like to brag about the fact that they electrified the world and won 2 world wars, which technically they did. Resort Dog says, God bless American spirit and read the regs closely. Absolutely. Brian says, be right back. Gotta feed the pre-leach vat. Speaking of which, while he's looking at things, I'm going to have to go check on my warmer and see what's going on with that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to add things to it.
Oh. Anyhow, so let's say it's it's quite the deal over there in Butte. It's a world-class ore body and such, and there's still a lot of gold underground at Butte. That I say there's at least one company I know of that is looking to access some material that's pretty close to where those pictures were taken from and start actual mining. The dumps that you see across the large flat,
Well, there's actually mining going on in the pit there.
I was about to get to that. The dumps you see across the big flat where the granite mountain head frame is, those are, you know, material stripped to make the Berkeley pit, and it apparently still has enough molybdenum and copper in it that they are mining that and processing that right now. You could see the trucks running it. They've got, it's not a big haul with a bunch of trucks. They got 150-ton haul trucks running back and forth 24 hours a day.
When we were driving down I-15 to leave town, I was watching the haul truck up there on the part of the dumps closest to the highway. It was a honking big haul truck.
Yeah. Wow, Shane. Yeah, that sucks, but yeah. Matter of fact, it was on John Campbell's show. They had a guy that his thing is cancer and working on essentially immunological treatment for cancer. And he said that, you know, you take all these studies and you look and say, well, some patients benefit from particular treatments and others don't. And they looked and it turned out that the vitamin D in their blood made a lot of difference. Hey, Toothpick, how's it going? Glad to see you, Toothpick. Any questions, just let them go. Oh, yeah. There's as long as you got somebody willing to undercut. What?
I was saying hi to Toothpick.
Yep. Yeah, if somebody wants to undercut the market and has the capability, they can do that. What is it with my back tonight? Oh, try a different position here. It may look a little weird. Uh,
Now, see what you can do about that.
yeah.
Yeah, vitamin D is turning out to be very, very important.
Yeah. It really is. Luckily, it's cheap and
So,
readily
Toothpick,
available.
what you been up to lately?
Yeah. I know that Eva is very careful to keep my vitamins, minerals, nutrition, and stuff within certain bounds, and I haven't had any problems with COVID during this whole thing.
And your shingles have been going really well, too.
Yeah, the shingles have been a lot better than a lot of people have ever reported. It's been a minor.
Yeah, Mr.
Inconvenience.
Virtue, his pose is looking a little bit crazy over there.
Yeah, well, let's say the back is a little bit out of whack some way. Anyhow, let's see, what do we got there, little one?
Toothpick says, hello, honey bunny. These streams of yours are usually beyond my knowledge, so I'd like to sit back and learn, but I'll chime in when I can. Well, tell us about what you do. We like to know what everybody
Toothpick,
does.
when you have a question, just ask, because a lot of the regulars here, we've talked over a lot of stuff, but there's other people like you who are new to it that haven't. So when somebody comes up with a question, it stimulates an informative conversation or lesson, whatever you want to call it sometimes.
Shane says, nothing like Mineral County. There's just so many tunnels under that county.
Yeah. So go ahead and ask away if you got something.
Toothpick says, just trying to make something of the life I have and whatnot. Not always sunshine, but I'm doing my best. How are y'all tonight? Well, we are doing great, actually.
Yeah.
I think so.
We're doing fine. What do you do in terms of mining, and what do you do when you're not mining? I agree with your basic philosophy there 100%. Luckily, all our kids are grown. We've been able to kind of disentangle ourselves from responsibilities and such, so we can pretty much live a fairly free-form life. We're not like nomads or
Hi,
anything.
Brian. Brian's back.
But we're not nearly as controlled by circumstances as the average couple is. So that makes life interesting.
Shane says you might glow in the dark, Keith.
I might glow in the dark. Oh, that would save batteries.
Phew, yeah, that would definitely save batteries.
Yeah, I told Lauren too, we found the flashlight that got lost, last month.
Well, I would love it if we found the keys that got lost.
Yeah.
That you lost.
I have been searching diligently, and I cannot find those stupid keys. Yeah, there's only one that we have to get duplicated, and I don't think you've got a copy. I may have to go.
Yeah, you took my key ring and tested, and you didn't find a copy.
Exactly. So.
Well, if you got the number on the master lock, I believe they can do it from the number that's on the lock.
Ooh, that's a good point.
There's a little 4-digit number on the.
That's a good point. I think you are correct.
Toothpick says he'll ask away when questions arise.
Absolutely.
Well, I will say this. Chris Georgie was very, very helpful earlier today in helping me navigate the maze that is the BLM. The BLM Glow Records section is just absolutely ridiculous, folks, just so you know.
What we're trying to do.
And Resort Dog says, I'm the proverbial found riches, but the selling of them was complicated. Gold isn't taxed till you sell it. Not that I have gold, I wish.
Yeah.
Oh, Lars says he can send us some extra keys. Dude, I love keys almost as much as I love insulators. And if this guy here had not been so lazy, he would have bought up the beautiful insulator that I found.
I gave you that little jar.
Yeah, the little jar is in bugs. Resort Dog says opal's above ground. Yeah, there's an opal place. Where was it? In Nevada,
Nevada,
I believe.
Yeah.
There's an opal mine down in Nevada that I want to go to.
Yep. By the way, Resort Dog, I presume you can claim opal. I know they keep changing the rules on that, but it used to be, collectible stuff like that was locatable. Do you know if that is still the case?
I know crystals used to be locatable.
Used to be. That's why I said.
Honey
Is
Bunny
it still
says,
the
I
case?
have 3 pounds of keys just from the cars and trucks I used to own. Well, I like keys. I like keys almost as much as I like insulators. Yes, Jean-Francois, insulators. Those beautiful ceramic and glass things that they used to put on telephone poles and wire and stuff.
Yep.
I love insulators. They're gorgeous. They're art. Oh, Lars has all glass insulators. And Resort Dog says, I've always saved all the keys I come across. That's my house. And yes, it's placer and then load.
Okay.
Oh, I found an insulator. I'm going to see if I can find a picture somewhere. No, it's doing that stupid thing again. Forget it, because he's not going to go down and get it so I can show it off. But yeah,
I have shoes on.
this is a very interesting insulator. It was ceramic, and it's this nice little cradle that's shaped kind of like that you apparently put the wire on. It's really cool.
What did Lauren call that? A dowel insulator or something?
I believe that. I believe that was the other one I found, the one that looks like a fishing reel or something. Resort Dog says some jerk muddied the water, so either claim is as good as another here, because both descriptions of the exact same deposit were both certified and deeds issued. That sounds about typical. I'm sure there were lawyers involved.
Yeah, that happens. The only thing worse than a lawyer is a politician. They both complicate everything enormously. Yeah, she's talking about electrical insulators, Jean-Francois. And I'm just glad a lot of that stuff was too big to pick up. Oh, my
I was
goodness.
very good. I saw a half a jaw from a huge pipe wrench. I mean, we're talking a pipe wrench that was as long as my arm.
The movable
And
jaw.
nice and rusty.
The
And
pipe wrench wasn't that.
I saw
the movable jaw was that.
I found the non-moving part of the movable jaw. I didn't even pick it up. I just took a picture of it. You know? Yeah, Jean-Francois says, power pole insulators. Okay, because I have a pack of rock wool and some styrofoam. Those are insulators too.
Yep.
Well, yeah, those are insulators, but they're not quite as fun.
Wasn't it Samuel Clemens? That
Resort Dog says, I got a few insulators from my power company career, but I prized the Zippy kilowatt substation porcelain sign. Ooh.
Zippy Kilowatt. Wasn't that the one that, what was it? Was it Arizona Public Service? Wasn't that their little character
Quite possibly. Jean-Francois says, one lawyer in a river, pollution. All lawyers in the river, the solution.
I think it was Samuel Clemens says something. What do you call 10,000 lawyers at the bottom of the ocean? A good start.
Resort Dog says, used from chaining out D8 tracks. I'll tell you, no, I mean, it was a pretty looking, yeah, the lightning bolt man, Resort Dog. No, it was the
I think you're right, Jean-Francois.
it was the stationary jaw of a huge pipe wrench, and it was beautifully rusty. And it was very close to the 90-degree eye bolt I grabbed. It was really huge and rusty. But then I said to myself, you see, I was wearing my smaller detachable pockets, and I had promised myself that I would only fill my pockets once while examining this area. And I could not think of a way to fit that wrench in the pocket. So I was like, drat. And I took a picture.
I think you're right, Jean-Francois. I think Arizona Public Service is ready kilowatt. Yeah.
And PP&L quit leasing the image. And Resort Dog says he also has a wood reservoir sign with his face on it. That is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I saw some really cool stuff. And I exercised great self-control in not bringing home all the artifacts.
Some of them are hundreds of tons.
Oh, come on now. That fire hose reel wasn't hundreds of tons. And that mysterious electrical thing with the widgets on it wasn't hundreds of tons.
No.
Maybe a couple 100 pounds. Might have not quite fit in the back of the van. However.
Yep. One thing that's interesting, both Lauren and I were very cheered because of Eva's girlish enthusiasm when she's wandering about looking at rocks and artifacts and things like that. She is just so happy at everything that you just got to get a smile on your face, you know?
Well, I mean, who wouldn't be happy running around and exploring stuff in a huge dump the size of a small town with all kinds of neat nooks and crannies? I mean, you never know what you're going to find.
Yep, that is true.
I mean, I even found the neck of one of those old Coke bottles from back in the day when you used the little thingy and did this to get the cap off. Not even a screw-off cap, the kind that you need a real bottle opener for. Yeeks.
Anyhow, so I said that's kind of what our week's been. Does anyone have any questions or subjects or whatever? Price of gold and silver is still going up steadily. So I suspect that's pretty. I think that continued increase of the price of precious metals in U.S. dollars is pretty much baked into the cake at this point. Yeah, Toothpick, that's why I like being able to hand pan samples, because it gives me something really quick that I can work off of. But it's not definitive, that's for sure. Price on the little one?
Yeah. Price on the
Whiteboard, please.
whiteboard.
Oh, okay.
Yep, I will get you numbers. Give me a second.
Working on it.
Okay, Bear. Here are your prices coming in for a landing. Gold, $27.45 on the international market right now, up $4.10. Silver, $33.68, up 3 cents. Platinum, $1,038. Palladium, $1,204. And rhodium, $4,500. So rhodium is still in the freaking toilet. No idea why that happened, but it is. And Resort Dog said the mine behind my house was free milling and never reported any production numbers. That does not surprise me at all. Laura says, what's the price of gold per milligram? That's all I recover. Well, do the math, Bear. Tell your loyal viewer what the price of gold per milligram is right now.
Well, to 2 decimal places, basically. Mr.
Virtue, this past week we got some stuff done in the house. We had bought the stripper home with us. I will say we need a better ventilation system in the bathroom because that thing is smelly. And
Looks like about 8.8 mils, 0.88 cents per milligram, I believe. Lars.
bars, it looks like 0.88 cents per milligram. So good luck there. No, things went quite well.
Yeah.
I've got some stuff digesting in my warmer right now. But unfortunately, if we go up to the top of the hill this weekend, we're probably going to be dealing with 0-degree temperatures at night, which will really stink.
Yeah, that would not be ideal.
Resort Dog says, don't get a stripper off Skid Row. Never happen. Toothpick says, I've been married going on 9 years, known my wife for 12. I hope we're as awesome as you two after that many years. Yeah, it's
Well,
been
thank you,
17
Toothpick. The key is compatibility, not romance or attraction.
The key is he's going senile, so I can, one of these days his memory is going to get bad enough that I can be really, really rude and he'll forget about it by the next day. This is going to work really well. Jean-Francois says he tries to bring his strippers back home, but they always say no.
Yeah.
Well, ours is a little smelly, but it's not dangerous. So, Though I will say this, generally you don't want a smelly stripper.
Yep.
Just because. Resort Dog says his folks got to celebrate 77 years together.
That's quite
Holy
the accomplishment.
guacamole.
Yeah.
That would be so amazing.
Even at that age, they still would have been like known each other well over 90 years in general.
Honey Bunny says, been alone 57 years, likely gonna die alone. Just think how many people are so lucky as to not to be killed in any of my future accidents. Jean-Francois says his memory is reliably unreliable.
It is selectively unreliable. That's the key.
Well, you see, if you're a chick, what you want is a dude that is legally blind and selectively deaf and has a bad memory.
Whoa.
Works out real well.
I check all the boxes, huh?
Yep. Toothpick says memories fade, attraction stays. Actually, it's beauty fades, dumb is forever.
I saw, let's say, Nick Freitas posted a video this week on what young people should look for in a long-term relationship that I thought was pretty well done. So that was pretty good. But yeah, young people nowadays are not well trained as to how long-term relationships work or don't work. And that's unfortunate. They're also not trained as to where happiness comes from. Happiness is not pleasure. They're two entirely different things.
Resort Dog, I never cared about money. If I cared about being rich, I'd be in trouble by now.
I don't care about money. I care about options. I like to learn things and do stuff. And if somebody else wants to pay for it, or if it doesn't cost anything, that's fine with me. Or if I can make money doing it, that's fine with me. But for most of my life, the whole purpose of becoming financially independent was to become actionally independent, So my actions were not constrained by monetary issues. Uh,
57 years is a feat in and of itself. Most people need a partner, but the fact you lived with yourself this long, they're talking to Honey.
Yeah.
Brian says it's pre-leached with hydrochloric and sodium percarbonate versus iron with pyrite. It has a pH of 1 to 2 and quickly runs up to 5 to 7 in less than 2 hours. I was not expecting that. Wow. That is fast.
Why is it neutralizing? I would have thought if you were oxidizing the sulfur, that it would get more acid, if anything. Let's see what message just showed up.
We've got multiple conversations.
No, that Trump guy's trying to get a hold of me again. Man, I wish he would please give me some peace.
Oh, so now Kamala Lala Ding Dong is claiming that this was her rally in Charlotte, South Carolina.
Really? What is that picture?
It was the giant rally and concert that was held that raised $25 million for hurricane relief. It had nothing to do with Kamala. So, Brian says he was expecting it to stay very acidic.
Yeah, that's what I would have expected too, Brian. You might need to do some more detailed analysis, figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah, that's a little bit bizarre. That's for sure.
You take care, Resort Dog.
Good night, Resort Dog. Enjoy the chicken.
No, it's just one of those things that it's sad that the young people are so unhappy unnecessarily.
Well, I read all the comments, or most of them, Toothpick, because Yo-Yo here has a damaged eye. He can't read,
Yeah,
and when he
people do
sees
that.
stuff on the screen, he leans forward to try to read it, so he's not even in the camera anymore. I'm trying to get him to sit back where he belongs, and he won't do it unless I'm reading the screen. So, you know. That's why I'm reading the screen, until I can break him of the habit of being terminally curious. What I wanted to do was just read the importance, the things that he needed to answer. Brian says he's hoping to get 15 grams of gold and silver more out of it. Well, that certainly would be nice.
That would be nice.
Oh, and if anybody has a direct link on YouTube to the full Joe Rogan Experience podcast with Trump, since YouTube is suppressing it so badly you can't get to that anymore, even when you look very carefully, I would like to see it. So email it to us. Honey Bunny says I've yet to weigh out the copper from my motor rebuild. Yeah, I call him Yo-Yo. I also call him Doofus. And I call him Dude, but his nickname is Bear. He's just being a yo-yo.
And she's my little one. Yep.
He's being a total yo-yo. He's leaning forward and trying to read the screen, so it looks really stupid.
Yo.
Well, this old man with large said Honey Bunny is a mensch, and he doesn't know how to spell mensch if he's thinking of the word mensch as in Yiddish. But that's okay. Most people can't spell mensch.
It's got an S in there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can almost read that.
Yeah, well, don't worry about it.
I think since that last polish job on my cornea, it has improved things a bit. That we shall see when Dr. Bays looks at it. The problem with living in Helena is it being one of the more modest-sized cities in Montana. The really good doctors are someplace else.
And Resort Dog says, are we supposed to ask to get in the Masons? My family all was, and Shriners, even holding offices. Well, I had an uncle that was a Mason. One of my uncles was a Mason. And yes, Honey Bunny spelled mensch probably. Mensch, Jeff, is a Yiddish word. It means a really good person.
Really?
Honey Bunny spelled it right. Lars spelled it wrong.
Ooh.
But that's okay. I'm not insulted by anybody using, spelling Yiddish words wrong. I don't know how to spell most of them either. So there is that.
Even though she wound up growing up as a Protestant child in a Jewish neighborhood in Boston.
Congregational. Yeah, well.
That would be Protestant.
Brian says, we have a place to stay here in Denver. Well, at the moment, Denver's a no-go zone. Sorry.
We'll see how this winter develops.
Yeah, I'm going to have to subscribe to his channel, Jean-Francois, because YouTube is suppressing it so badly that I can't find it otherwise. Well, I know quite a lot of Yiddish. I also know quite a lot of Hebrew. It's not something I advertise online because you may have noticed since long about October 7th of last year, the anti-Semites have really come out of the woodwork. It's very disturbing.
There's a lot of stuff coming out of the woodwork over the last year or two. Oh, this is going to get so interesting.
Mr. Virtue says he fell asleep a half hour watching Joe in the Dawn.
I wouldn't doubt that. That would not surprise me.
I just want to see it because a lot of people are discussing it, you know. It's all right, Lars. You can be not Yiddish. I totally accept that not everybody can be Yiddish. Just like not everyone can be left-handed. It's kind of an exclusive club.
She's so sinister.
Yeah, the last half hour, Mr. Virtue says. Well, I want to watch it just because there's been so much discussion about it from people that were either anti-Trumpers and or claiming to be apolitical for months on various social media places. And long conversation with many of them indicated they really were apolitical or they were not paying attention to crap.
Yeah.
And this
busy with their lives.
This interview has got a lot of people saying he gives off really cool grandpa vibes. I'm kind of mind blown.
Well, Hitler's grandkids probably thought the same thing.
Hitler didn't have any grandkids.
Oh, okay. I said corrected.
Oh, I got myself in trouble the other day.
Oh, what did you do?
Well, somebody brought up the fact that 20% of Gen Xers or something say Hitler answered the question that Hitler actually had some pretty good ideas. And that was the question, Hitler may have been evil, but he did have some good ideas. And I said, well, oh, there's a Yiddish version of Katusha, huh? I'm going to have to look that one up. And so I said, well, yeah, according to Gen X, Hitler did have some good ideas. After all, the man pioneered animal rights laws and humane slaughter laws, and he ate a whole foods plant-based diet, which heaven knows this modern generation is really fans of. Okay? And oh my lord. It's like, excuse me, yeah, the guy was utterly and thoroughly evil. This is, and I went back and I wrote, y'all need to learn some reading comprehension. I led off with in capital letters. He was evil. These are the good ideas Gen X appreciates. And I listed them. Mind you, I'm not against animal rights myself. And I'm definitely not against humane slaughter. I think it's a wonderful idea.
Nazi.
Yeah, exactly, Resort Dog. A lot of Hitler's ideas, the modern Gen X absolutely loves. Vegetarian, gun confiscation, animal cruelty, interstate highways, yes.
No, it's just...
I mean, he happens to be, homophobic, well, but they also pioneered transgender medicine, We all know how that one happened. But, yeah, I mean, he happens to be an absolute homicidal megalomaniac and a sociopath and everything else, A Russian friend who is half Jewish, but she seems to have problems because she's also half Persian. Yeah, that would be a problem. And yeah, Jean-Francois, it is National Socialism, which by somehow has magically become right-wing instead of left-wing since the 1940s. Mussolini was actually a fascist, but, I mean, the whole thing is funny. And yeah, Mr. Virtue. But that was, it just sparked a really ridiculous conversation because a lot of people's responses on social media are getting pretty hair-trigger these days. It's like, at least read what someone actually wrote before you start screeching. You know?
That could get interesting, Jean-Francois. But although there's a difference between the Persian people and the government, just like, for example, I don't agree with hardly anything my government's doing right now, you know. So you've got that too. But yeah, that could get pretty interesting. No, it is amazing how messed up things are getting. Anyhow, we're drifting a bit far afield from the mining bit.
But anyway, it was just kind of funny, you know.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, of course it's too late for the liberals. We are in the middle of the largest mass psychosis event in recorded human history, and there will be a decompensation wave that is going along with the election, no matter what happens with the election. Okay? So,
I have a filmmaking friend who is
being married to a Brit and converted to Mormon.
that's pretty bad.
Well, Chris, you know, you can only do so much with crazy people. That's just, you know.
Well, sometimes
Psychotic's got a psychotic. I mean, come on now.
you just gotta let reality do its thing. Because when someone has been indoctrinated to believe certain things, whatever they may be, that are contrary to provable reality, if it gets to the situation where they have to deal with that reality, it will often teach them that their opinions are pretty counterproductive.
Well, funny enough, that was something else that came up today. People were discussing. There's an organization in Seattle that wants to take back Seattle and bring back responsible government. And the woman who has been talking about this on X, who's the leader of this organization, said that she is, well, I'll get to that in a second, Jeff. She said that she voted for Trump and she's voting Republican down ticket because they need to take back Seattle. The place has become a dystopian hellscape, which we all know. Oh boy. She has now found out after the fourth time in a week that her big, very expensive store windows got busticated just how violent the psychotic left can be when they want to. Jeff, a decompensation wave. First of all, psychosis is defined as that state wherein you are delusional and you hold a worldview that is inconsistent with objective reality, which, for instance, is all of your leftists, you know, with the...
What is a woman?
What is a woman thing? Well, when you're living in a delusional framework, when you're delusional, to cope with cognitive dissonance, to cope with looking around and seeing reality is not matching what you're seeing, you build a delusional framework in your head, like Trump is Hitler, okay? And because Hitler had good ideas, Trump has good ideas, you know. Hitler,
Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, because Madison Square Garden 90 years ago, there was a Nazi rally. The rally the other night was obviously also a Nazi rally, completely overlooking the many rallies in between. When you get too much cognitive dissonance, and you can no longer come up with rationalities, you can no longer come up with rationalizations that support your delusion, then you begin to decompensate. Now, unfortunately, when nutballs decompensate, it ultimately will lead to catatonic in a closet, which is fine with me, murder, or suicide, because it psychically and physically is painful to have your entire worldview disintegrate. So we are surrounded by nutballs here. We're in the middle of the largest mass psychosis event in human history. We have a large segment of the population who genuinely has convinced themselves that, you know, if you take the right drugs and get the right surgeries, you really genuinely will become the opposite sex. During the COVID lockdown madness, we were all segregated in our homes and subjected to 24/7 fear porn that broke a lot of people's minds. So, well, decompensate, yeah. We should be so lucky they decompose. You know, it would be quite helpful if they just spontaneously decomposed. I would love it. But the problem is when they suddenly can no longer delude away reality, they can no longer find a space within their framework where they feel safe, then we're going to get a decompensation wave.
Well, let me see if I understand this. They have a firmly entrenched worldview,
Yeah.
like my science or
Trump is
whatever.
Hitler, we're all Nazis.
Okay. But when reality illustrates that their worldview cannot be correct,
Yeah.
then their mind,
They just can't take that shit.
yeah, it doesn't adapt and say, wow, I was mistaken.
They can't do that because, well, let's take a look at the parents, the well-meaning parents, or even the nuts, okay? Even the Munchausen by proxy crowd. Let's take a look at the well-meaning parents that castrated their young children, okay? This is a case where these people are out there right now. As a matter of fact, one physically assaulted somebody the other day that was physically assaulted a detransitioner for daring to say that no, you can't be born in the wrong body. If they have to face the fact that they, over a period of years, destroyed their child's physical health, turned their child into a lifelong medical patient, needing extensive medical care and hormone therapy for life, turn their child into a lifelong psychiatric patient. Yeah, that's a hard reality for someone
That's a lot
to
of guilt.
swallow.
Yeah, that'd
It's
be
a
a lot of
tremendous
guilt.
amount of guilt. And we have people out there, they're all nuts, okay? They're psychotic. I told him years ago when he was like, I don't understand how these people can, what do we do with these people? And I'm like, you just have to accept the fact they are psychotic. You cannot reason with a nutball. The best hope you can have with a nutball is either when they have their psychotic break, their mind adjusts and says, okay, I have to rebuild myself from the ground up and find sane place again, or they're going to do something really bad to defend their ideology. And we currently have a mainstream media that was literally, in the case of MSNBC, was literally putting up shots of Hitler's rally when they were talking about Trump's Madison Square Garden rally.
Mm-hmm.
They were literally putting those up.
Side by side.
They didn't put up John Kennedy's. They didn't put up FDR's. They didn't put up the two Democratic conventions. They put up Adolf Hitler. They have been telling these people, if someone does not use your right pronouns, they want to put you on a train. These are the kind of people who, if Trump does manage to win and actually does manage to get sworn in without getting assassinated or otherwise, they really they already literally feel like they're fighting for their lives.
Yeah.
That's a problem. And yeah, Chris, the medical industry loves repeat customers. Yo-yo dieting's another good example of that. The diet industry needs to be gone. But
Well,
Anyway, he's going to take the seat back. I'm going to go get a soda. But yeah, that's what a decompensation wave is. When a whole bunch of nutballs really go nuts.
Yeah, I mean,
They become actively nuts.
what has been concerning recently, and is now becoming blatantly obvious, is how certain groups and much of the media is pushing narratives which justify the use of violence in a self-protection or societal protection type thing. For example, the threat to democracy, Nazi, Hitler, he's going to, Trump's going to put his opponents in jail, things
Yep.
like this.
Jean-Francois says laws and government equals guns and coercion. Yeah, it does.
And the particular methodology with which they present these ideas is accidentally or intentionally.
Huh.
My guess is some is accidental, some is intentional, depending on who and what. But it is formulated in such a manner as to encourage and justify violence using the concept of self-defense. I have to defend an innocent third party against the Nazis. I have to defend myself and my freedom. The whole abortion argument is couched in the terms of they want to take away your rights, and all of these mental presentations are such that it is going to result in a higher probability of substantial and more severe violence when people are not satisfied with, say, the results of an election or whatever. It's my personal viewpoint that this whole Trump's going to be a dictator is designed to, they, in my opinion, know that in order to really stop the deep state and fight the deep state, Trump is going to have to use some pretty dramatic actions, such as like firing everyone above GS-10 in the FBI or something to
Which
that
they
effect.
should anyway.
But those, if someone is primed, mentally primed, this is, psychological techniques, to think of dramatic actions against the status quo as dictatorial
Or insurrection.
or insurrection, then that's how they're going to interpret that. You need to scroll down some.
Jeff says, today I listened to Bob Woodward speak about how he found out it was for the best that Ford pardoned Nixon. Yeah, that was a pretty good pardon. I mean, Ford, I think, was a very good placeholder.
Yeah. Let's say,
Mr. Virtue says, I had pics of Bugs Bunny dressing up in female clothes with makeup. And yeah, Mr. Virtue, Bugs Bunny, despite the fact that trans people claimed that Bugs Bunny was trans, Bugs Bunny knew damn well he was not female. He was doing that deliberately for a reason.
mm-hmm, exactly.
And that's a critical difference that they like to totally ignore.
Well, here's a good example from recent headline. Well,
Yeah, blame Warner Brothers.
recent news. There was a flight attendant on a flight. I don't know what the airline was. It was an American carrier. And a passenger misgendered them. First of all, this is just such a stupid concept to begin with. But anyhow, misgendered them. This flight attendant got quite upset. The person, as I understand, was saying, look, you look like a guy. Anyhow, the flight attendant got so upset that it became impossible for the flight attendant and the passenger to both be on the same airplane. And so,
Jean-Francois says, Bugs Bunny was in fact a Tasmanian devil in rabbit drag.
but anyhow, so they kicked the passenger off the flight. Now, there's a practical monetary reason. The law requires there be so many flight attendants on that aircraft. It does not require there be so many passengers on that aircraft. So had they kicked the flight attendant off, then that plane would have been delayed until a new flight attendant could have been found.
And as to why this happens with these dudes in dresses, there's generally, right now, there are two main varieties of dudes in dresses. Variety number one are the autogynephiles. These are dudes that get a sexual kick, it's their fetish, out of dressing as women and violating women's boundaries. They brag about, they're the ones that put on the walls in women's bathrooms of a trans woman peed here and there's nothing you can do about it, okay? They get off on forcing people to comply with their sexual fantasy.
Right.
So when somebody misgenders them, they get really pissed because it ruins their euphoria boner.
Well, not only that, it gives them an opportunity to force someone to comply.
And the other group are the actual psychotics who truly believe, for whatever reason, that when they put on the makeup and the dress and they take the hormones, they did become a genuine lady. And when you challenge them by identifying them as they actually are, this creates a very painful level of cognitive dissonance. And then you see what happens when a psychotic gets a little break. Not even a full break, just a little one. The least reaction you get from these people is usually the screaming meltdown or the TikTok screaming meltdown in the car that they publish online, so everybody will reaffirm them and hug box them and make them feel better. But some of these people, there was one case in Britain here recently where the dude in a dress followed the woman down the street. He bumped into her when she was coming out of a bathroom deliberately. And she, without thinking, because she wasn't looking at him at all, said, "Excuse me, sir." He followed her down the street, physically threatening her, and grabbed her and physically assaulted her because of that, and because she would not cry and apologize and call
Kowtow.
him a woman.
Yeah.
These people are dangerous.
Yeah. And so the thing that I was pointing out, though, was our culture, society, and laws have become such that the employee felt safe yelling and screaming at a customer in an airplane. I don't know about you. I would have felt unsafe that flight attendant was in charge of my safety, and I would have concerns about other personnel in that airline, such as mechanics, pilots, and things like that, that were involved in a system which was so out of touch with this is what an airline is for, to provide safe, efficient, and reasonably affordable transportation for customers and make the customer happy, And if you're allowing your flight attendants to get in fights with your customers, are you allowing your mechanics to get in, to have conflicts with their supervisors and stuff like that? I don't know, but that just shows how far away from reasonable behavior we have got. And as everyone can readily observe, it's getting worse or more intense over time. And
here's a perfect example.
and so with the election coming up, there's all kinds of possibilities as to how the election goes. Anywhere from Trump wins in an obvious landslide to Kamala Harris wins in an apparently legitimate vote. There's a whole spectrum in between there. Virtually all of these lead to the potential for societal disruption.
And yes, Jean-Francois, the judges are a problem.
Yes.
Which is one of the reasons why we need to do something about activist judges.
Yeah. And the same thing with the election system, because last election, challenges were not heard in open court on TV so everyone can see the arguments and resolved, they have been allowed to fester and potentially grow larger so that we are going into a situation where arguably the tensions are even higher, the societal stresses and emotional intensity are higher, and not have a system which, at the end of the election, assuming it's any reasonably not super duper close like Gore v. Bush, everyone can at least agree on what the vote was. Well, I don't think you're going to get that unless somebody wins in a landslide. Okay, I know who I think has the chance of that, doesn't matter. A landslide victory is not very likely here. It is possible, not likely. But even in that case, let us say Trump won in a landslide. Do you think the left's going to go along with that? Or are they going to get violent? Be prepared, folks. Be ready. I know we've gotten away from the mining a bit, but I think at this point, it makes perfect sense to focus a little bit on the immediate future and the immediate possibilities and just be prepared. I have no idea what's going to go on, and that completely and utterly leaves out black swan events and deliberate actions by foreign entities, such as the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, Hezbollah, whatever. All of those can make the situation worse. None of them can make it better, in my opinion. So be ready, Freddie. Life's going to get interesting at best over the next few weeks, and it's hard to tell when it's going to get to any kind of routine. Okay?
Apparently, Jamie Dimon is mad at the Biden-Harris administration because of regulations.
Yeah.
Apparently, J.P. Morgan is having another problem with regulations.
Anyhow, when it comes to mining, again, all of this bodes well for the prices of gold and silver in U.S. dollars.
This bodes well for the prices of gold and silver.
What?
That's why I bought the article up. So what's going on here is apparently Jamie Dimon, our dear friend over there at J.P. Morgan, you know, those people, so to speak. Jamie Dimon is upset with the current administration's plans for regulating the U.S. banking industry, rattling off a list of what he described as ill-conceived rules, quote unquote. Dimon singled out a blueprint aimed at helping banks absorb major economic shocks by forcing them to hold more capital on the balance sheets to weather financial storms. The proposal, known as Basel III, and y'all are going to want to look that up, would see major lenders raise their emergency buffer by 9%. Oh, wow, a whole 9%. The veteran banker warned the devil would be in the details. We're suing our regulators over and over because things are becoming unfair and unjust. And they're hurting companies, and a lot of these rules are hurting lower paid individuals. Dimon hinted the plans may not even survive after the November 5th presidential election, suggesting they were based on stupid calculations. Very interesting. Oh, and they're also after the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau again. The goddess has to wonder whether JP is about to land back in court for manipulating the precious metals prices again. Just saying,
Yeah.
You know, it would not surprise me.
And also when it comes to mining, especially small-scale mining, if there's a dramatic change or a dramatic intensification in the regulatory environment, that can make big differences for us.
Jean-Francois, as to the military, half of our military now are not patriots. A lot of patriots got weeded out during the COVID madness because the whole vax thing happened. And the newly voted lethal violence actually wasn't newly voted and wasn't exactly how it's portrayed on social media. That said, yeah, I'm pretty darn sure, talking to a lot of the military people I know, that a good proportion of them quite possibly will consider firing on the American people anyway. And part of that is a lot of people have noticed lately that a whole lot of the younger, newer military with families, their families are now living in base housing. Now think about this. This is something that people are beginning to discuss now. During emergencies or during unrest, like, during 9/11, people were bringing this up. A lot of the bases were locking down their front gates and telling the civilians, we don't want you going off base. So if they've got your family held hostage in base housing and they tell you, we're going to put you on a plane and send you to a strange state where you don't know anybody because you got to enforce some really nasty laws, how many of these people are actually going to say, fuck you? This is a good question. It's something that is being discussed. Different variations are
Under consideration.
Because the percentage of people who claim, who say they will take their oath seriously isn't as high as it used to be,
Well, who wants to be the first, too?
Yeah.
A lot of these things become kind of randomized because somebody will set an example. Like the My Lai massacre was stopped when was Lieutenant Calley told his helicopter pilot to land and pointed his machine gun at American troops and said, stop.
Yeah. The real and true patriots will defend the people. But for the last several years, something that's shown up a lot on social media and a lot in forums is the same thing that showed up back during the Vietnam War about taking a government job. All kinds of Marxist, anti-work people, etc., are being told, lie, steal, they're being told, clean up your record, say what you got to say to get in, because it's a job that will get you your college degree and you can undermine things from within. My Army son has occasionally alluded to the fact that there is an erosion in the quality of the people that he has in his particular career field as well. And that's something we're seeing more of. They also, we're already in a civil war, Jean-Francois. It just hasn't dawned on anybody yet. We've been at war, open war, since 2020. Most people seem to have missed this fact. I have not. But the thing is, we do have a lot of active duty military people that I talk to now that are in my son's age group, in their 30s, are saying the quality of the people I'm getting is really beginning to scare me. They're doing the job for the paycheck and bitching about the job while doing it for the paycheck. These people are not patriots.
They will not stand up for right. They will do what they're told for the paycheck. Yeah.
I wish. And yeah, I gotta wonder about Kanakistan, dude. I mean, socks kind of has me worried now and then, And exactly, honey bunny. Good people join the military for the right reasons. A lot of people who join the military for the right reasons have left willingly or unwillingly. Either they aged out, they retired out, or they've gotten booted out during the COVID thing.
Well, this also creates a big question as to, first of all, what is the actual capabilities of the U.S. military when you've got a bunch of people who are not courageous and disciplined and stuff like that? And what is the situation with the U.S. civilians, which got a large influx of highly trained military personnel who were disgruntled by the military and discharged? again, we have a really unusual dynamic right now, which makes it very hard to predict what's going to happen, especially as these things tend to be, I wouldn't say controlled, but heavily influenced by random acts like George Floyd.
Yeah,
stuff
and
like
you're not
that.
the only one, honey bunny. There's quite a few people that have had situations with medical care, if you will.
Yeah. And this is the situation.
And yeah, the ex-mil patriots are stockpiling. That is a good thing, thank goodness.
Yeah, and I say, I don't know how many governors are going to stand up and tell the U.S. government, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to do that, or not. We have a couple of good state attorneys general that are fighting stuff.
Well, resort dog, having a driver's license is the equivalent of let me see your papers in one way. But I'll tell you right now, I wish to hell that our driver's license system was confined to legal American citizens and legal immigrants only, because our driver's license system in many states is tied to who gets
Voter
issued
registration.
voter registration.
Yeah, absolutely. Motor voter.
Yeah.
Decades ago. Yep.
California, for instance, is a mail-in ballot state all over the place. People are already reporting, again, this election cycle, people are showing videos of having received dozens of ballots at their house for people who are not them, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I actually don't have a problem with a driver's license if that driver's license is very clearly
Marked.
marked, and you shouldn't be able to get one if you're in a country illegally. You know? Exactly, Jean-Francois. We have people coming south over our northern border from Canada. As a matter of fact, somebody posted a video the other day that went somewhat viral. He had set up trail cams. He was in northern Vermont, and he set up trail cams because he was looking for game because hunting season. Well, what showed up on his trail cams was a whole line of illegal aliens marching down from Canada.
Well, not only that, Jean-Francois, but Brett Weinstein reports,
Real ID is ridiculous. I hated having to get one.
yeah, that the
Resort dog?
Chinese, just a second, little one, that the Chinese are sending thousands upon thousands of military-age men through their own separate system of housing and food and stuff like this through Panama, up through Mexico, into the United States. And as he points out, you don't leave China without government permission. What are tens of thousands of military-aged Chinese going to do here?
And Resort Dog, there's reason to believe Antifa is already thinking that, because there have been several ballot boxes in red-leaning counties up there in Washington, on the Washington State-Oregon border in Portland and in Vancouver. Ballot boxes are being destroyed with incendiary devices. And there have been a couple that were burned up in Arizona. We got Real ID because the state of Arizona said we had to get Real ID for
some reason.
to get our driver's licenses renewed.
Was it that, or was it their passports?
It might have been for the
I think it was for the passports. But yeah, in my opinion, the left will be perfectly happy to have a completely chaotic and undecipherable election. If nobody can tell who won, nobody beat them, right?
Uh-huh.
And so, to me, this encourages them to do things to increase the chaos, which is not good.
And yeah, Antifa is being funded by all kinds of globalists.
Yeah.
For an organization that supposedly is not an organization and not a group and is merely a nebulous idea, they sure as hell are very well organized. I will say that.
Well, and the thing is, too,
Well, once again, we
Notice-
strayed away from mining.
I think we're pretty much there now. In the case of, what I was previously saying, notice how all of these things.
BOS recreational mining says a tie is possible. Yeah, I don't think they'll allow a tie, but theoretically, a tie is actually possible.
It's extremely difficult to actually get a tie with the Electoral College. You have a better chance of getting a tie in Congress and stuff like that. And so, but again, as I was saying, notice how all these things require Trump, when he takes office, if he were to take office, to make dramatic actions.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, let's say,
Well,
Got a pretty bad feeling.
it will be a good time to buy land, because we do have a real estate crash incoming in the middle of all this. And I found it quite interesting when I referenced that article to you guys where Jamie Dimon was publicly complaining about Basel III. I find it interesting that they admitted banks have been suing and suing to try to get these regulations removed. I think part of the reason the banks are beginning to really get so fed up about this regulation is with the situation set up the way it currently is, they are really screwed in between a rock and a hard place. In order to meet those Basel III things,
hey, Billy.
Hi, Billy. In order to meet the Basel III requirements and the other regulatory requirements they have, first of all, they have to free up a lot of cash. That cash needs to be used to either buy gold at whatever price they can get it at, or at least buy futures for gold, since we all know paper gold doesn't exist anyway. But more than that, the government has put in a whole bunch of other regulations that ensure that the first cash they free up has to be used to buy our worthless treasury bonds to continue to shore up our government spending. And they're already holding a bunch of bonds that they're underwater on, that they can't sell, that they have to keep trading in and rolling over and doing reverse repo and other kinds of crazy accounting on without making any money. Okay? So they're already in a position where they cannot realistically free up any of the money that they have without freeing it up at a significant loss.
Well, that is statistically possible, boss. I think practically it's highly unlikely.
Yep.
Um,
Though I will say this. Nebraska's talking about making proportional electoral votes go away, and Maine's talking about making proportional electoral votes go away. Personally, I'd like to see every state make proportional electoral votes happen, so that in a state like Washington State, where only 3 counties control the whole state, if you divided up the electoral votes, that would not happen anymore. That's why they don't want to make it go away.
and the other thing is, right now the BRICS are having a meeting in Kazan, I think it is.
Yeah.
And they've publicly stated they're setting up an alternative economic system for banking clearinghouse transactions and things like this, essentially so that they can do their business, and to hell with the United States and to hell with Europe. They don't need to cooperate with us to deal with each other. And so how does that affect the US dollar, the price of gold, etc.? It would seem likely to drive the price of precious metals up, because that's probably one of the first things they're going to do to help stabilize it, is to partially back it with precious
Honey
metals
Bunny,
or
Maine and Nebraska had it in their original legislatures. Their legislatures did the splitting. And yes, because under the Constitution, it is the legislators that set the rules for the Electoral College and for how elections are run within their state. Now, it would be what I'd really like to see happen.
Well,
is
question, did the U.S. Constitution change the voting for Senate, or Was
No,
that
some
individual
city
states?
called Kazan. I believe it's Khaz.
No, Kazan, I believe, in Kazakhstan.
It's in Kazakhstan.
Yep.
But yeah, the Electoral College votes are split in Maine and Nebraska. So Omaha has one electoral vote, and the rest of the state has another one. And in Maine, one electoral vote goes to, I think it's Portland or something. That would be the best system if we froze the number of counties that are allowed in the state, and then just said, okay, a state gets one electoral vote per county or something, or found a way to split the Electoral College proportionally so that you could.
They are already doing that, Mr. Virtue. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Because no, I mean, it should not be winner take all. If you had a state, if you
Good
had
point, John Francois.
if you had a state, as an example, if your state has 2 electoral votes and it's winner take all right now, and 51% of the population votes for Kamala Ding Dong and 49% votes for Trump, then when those electoral votes go, both of them, to Kamala Ding Dong, the Trump voters have been disenfranchised. Part of the problem here is the people were never supposed to vote for president.
Well,
Just
again,
like the people were never supposed to vote for Senate.
as I was saying earlier, okay, who changed the rules on how the electors were selected? Was it individual states that we're going to go to a vote of the people, or
Yes.
was it a U.S. Constitution?
Individual states
Okay, so it can be
had it
changed
in
like
their,
that.
yeah.
Okay.
Individual states had it in their constitution that the electors will follow the will of the popular vote. What happened realistically on the ground back in the 1800s there is states would
That's
ask
some part
their
right,
citizens
Billy.
to vote, you know? States would ask their citizens to just register a popular vote to get an idea of the public sentiment on the candidates that were out there. The state would then choose their electors, and, well, sometimes the state went. And then sometimes the state followed that popular sentiment, and other times it didn't. The reason that we had the system we had, the people were in charge of the purse. And because our representatives were not supposed to be living in D.C., they were supposed to be living in their home states, like 10 months out of the year, that would put them right under your eye where you could get really, really pissed at them, okay?
Or heal.
Or whatever. No, honey bunny, that's the point. That's the reason for the Electoral College, is the rural representation has to be equal to or greater than the cities. That's why they set up the Electoral College the way they did.
Well, that's why the House of Representatives is set up by population, and the Senate is set up by
By
2
state,
per state.
2 per state.
So,
The states chose their senators. The state legislatures chose their senators because the senators were supposed to represent the interests of the state. The House represents the people. The Senate represents the states, so the states should still be choosing our senators. The president, being the executive branch, wasn't supposed to be doing much of anything. And the president would be chosen by electors, chosen by their state legislatures, because in the really early days, the guy that got the most electoral votes was president. The guy that came in second was VP. So it made it very, very hard for shit to get done on the federal level, which is what our founders wanted.
Yeah, they
Our
wanted to
founders
go.
wanted an executive branch that did not do much of anything. The executive branch was only supposed to conduct matters of state and sign treaties and shit. So you could have a VP and a president that disagreed with each other, as long as they could get that done.
Yeah.
Everything else, the Senate was supposed to decide on things, and then the House would look at what the Senate decided and say, we don't want to spend the money on that, so y'all can fuck off and die. It would be nice if our House of Representatives would do that now.
Well, that's what happens when you have professional politicians.
Yeah.
If you made your money from business and not from your salaries and from your, call it, side hustle of being a legislator, then you would be interested in making for a robust economy, because that's how
Billy is saying if you microwave your if you microwave your pyrites, it works really well.
Well, if you're submerging them in alkaline water before the microwave, are they still submerged when you microwave them, Billy? Or do you just let them soak and then take it out and microwave them? And let's say, I'm just curious about that. We haven't really run into pyrites yet, but sooner or later we will. And I know some people that do have pyrites.
Oh, wow. Mail-in ballots without postmarks can be counted up to 3 days after the election. Really now?
Says
In
who?
Nevada.
In Nevada, okay.
Oh, yeah, Nevada's pulling their shenanigans again.
Yeah. Oh, I thought I heard rain.
Yeah, it's supposed to be raining, which means it's snowing up on the hills.
No, just wind.
Well, my phone said it may be raining later this evening. And yes, Jean-Francois, money and the power to tax.
Well,
But it does depend in some ways on the type of money. That is one of the great advantages to a sound money system, meaning not the fiat fractional economy that we have now. Well, the pure fiat or the fractional economy. Because if you have pure sound money that has not been devalued, it's a finite thing. If you're just creating money out of thin air, like our current Fed is,
yeah.
and loaning it to yourself at interest, and then paying it off by borrowing more money from yourself at interest from another account, go figure that one out, you have a problem. But if our money were back to a sound bimetallic system of gold and silver with copper for the minor change,
That
yeah.
may happen, Jean-Francois.
Jean-Francois is a secessionist.
I guess BC is the only Western state that
Thank
Canada
you very much, Billy. I'm a tinfoil hat goddess, and he's just a yo-yo, but he's a smart yo-yo. No, I mean, the thing is, that is why we need to get back to a sound money system. The reason our politicians get rid of sound money, and the reason historically
power.
it has happened so often, is because sound money has rules that if you try to violate them come with pretty damned immediate consequences. Fractionalized currency has a lot less rules, which is why the first thing you see when an empire is falling is they devalue or debase their currency. Like when we went from 90% to 40% Kennedys, for instance, or they make it go away entirely. The Roman Empire at the very end, if you ever get yourself some nice old Roman coins, they're really, really pretty, like the quadrigas from, say, Britain around 300 AD. If you ever get yourself some nice looking Roman coins from the very end of the empire, they're pretty much 100% base metal. Because that is one of the first things that happens when an empire is entering its devolution and deconstruction stage, is the currency is debased. When you have sound money, when you have actual sound money and the ability to build wealth, you're working within a very confined rule set. And our politicians don't like that rule set, you know.
Well, another thing about
Billy says it's specific for arsenopyrite. Oxidation from complex sulfides forms ArO3 as an acid, then NaOH or KOH will capture before Ar further oxidization to Ar4/5, which is airborne.
Okay. Cool. So,
Yeah, honey bunny. I mean, look how rapidly Canada devalued its currency. They went for the longest time they were 90%, then I believe it was 80, then it went to 50, and then they got steel money.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, when your country has magnetic money, you know you've got a problem.
Well, ours is no better right now.
Well, and the thing is too, money is synonymous with power, basically, economic power. And so by being able to print up their own money, they can take the power from the people. They can take the resources, essentially, and give it
They
to
can
themselves.
take the wealth. And
Yeah.
inflation is a feature of this. This is not a bug. Well, actually, Jean-Francois, at this point, if I were up there, I'd be a secessionist because it's a darn good idea. Yeah, the looters wouldn't like it. That's true. But that's the thing, is when inflation is a feature of a fiat system, because a fiat system is the only means where you can have what you could call, from a government point of view, a stable financial system that still transfers wealth from the people to the center of power. When governments had sound money systems that were not debased currency, when they tried to transfer the wealth from the people to the government, that led rapidly to revolutions and lots of heads on spikes and people and lots of use of ropes and land and lampposts and lots of use of guillotines, because they weren't even able to leave the people the illusion of wealth. Then they came up with this great fractionalized idea so that they could leave people the illusion of wealth while they were still actively removing the pathways to generate wealth from the people. And then they began deliberately miseducating people back around the turn of the 20th century, when fractionalization became pretty much the world norm. They began deliberately miseducating people. So we are now at a state where people firmly believe that fiat currency, which is absolutely imaginary, it's a debt instrument, so it's not backed by anything, is money when it isn't, okay? And they have people believing that they are accumulating wealth when they're accumulating nothing. Technically, they're accumulating somebody else's debt. And there is nothing actually behind that debt. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. And yes, Billy, they did use to clip the coins. I have seen examples in a couple of coin shops, as a matter of fact.
Well, Jean-Francois, I have no firm disagreement with Bitcoin. Personally, I don't like something that doesn't have physical existence. But wealth in the form of gold and silver does have to be placed somewhere safe or someplace you can get to. It also has to be carried if you're going to point A to point B. I mean, if you had, $50 million in gold, that'd be how much? Let's just see here. 50.
Well, let me put it this way, Jean-Francois. I absolutely agree that if you're going to have crypto, you need to have it in your own wallet with your own keys, because if you do not hold it, you do not own it, okay? You need to have a cold wallet to store this crap on. That said, the goddess does not believe in imaginary money, because it isn't money, it's currency. The goddess does not believe in imaginary currency. Whether it's Canadian dollars, US dollars, or Bitcoin, it doesn't matter. At this point, all of these things are forms of fiat currency. At some point, when we have the next worldwide financial system crash, we're going to reset again, because it's happened multiple times in 5,000 years of history, in the sense that it happens at fairly regular intervals, that we have serious economic meltdowns. This is going to be the worst one ever, because it's going to involve the whole world in a really bad way. But what usually happens,
Briggs is trying to
it
opt out of
comes
that.
along with a civilizational collapse, which may well encompass the whole world this time. When people come out the other side of that, they don't want something imaginary, because they have learned a very salutary lesson that the imaginary shit does not do any good. You need real shit. Bitcoin is imaginary shit, okay? And I'm not saying don't own it.
No, it's intangible.
Plenty of people have it, and I don't see anything wrong with that. But we need to re-educate people when everything collapses. And this is an argument that comes up on the Prepper Sub a lot, because, oh, you can't eat gold, or you can't eat silver. Gold and silver are not for during shit hits the fan. They're not for during the end of the world as we know it. Gold and silver are for the rebuilding phase, because you need an actual sound money system.
Okay,
And you
hold on.
want something that's not wheat or salt.
Okay. Now, to me, Bitcoin makes a lot of sense if you're dealing with lots of money, or if you need mobility, or if you're trying to do
Yeah,
some
intangible
speculating,
does equal imaginary.
you know. For someone of our resources, Bitcoin can become impossible to access. For example, the internet goes bye-bye.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. You know, the power system goes.
Yeah.
The people in North Carolina, no power, no internet, nothing for a long time. Okay? Now, mind you, they could have lost their stash of stuff too, but, I mean, you know, 10 pounds of gold is pretty portable if you needed to. But they're different.
Yeah.
They fulfill different purposes in my personal
I
opinion.
mean, as Jean-Francois says, Bitcoin mathematically requires proof of work, which it does. Physical gold is nothing more than its own proof of work.
Yeah.
In a sense, it is.
Yeah.
It is actually, proof that work has happened, whether it was done by you or someone else.
So, as I say, to me, the whole situation between Bitcoin and precious metals are two different things that serve two different purposes.
We are on the cusp of a major breakout in precious metals. We're also on the cusp of a major breakout in base metals. There is severe upward pressure right now on I would not necessarily agree with that, Jean-Francois, because they can't take everybody's gold and silver. Here in the United States, for instance, in 1933, they ordered that all gold be turned in and all that happy-crappy. Less than 1/3 of it was actually turned in. They're not going to come door to door, and like ours, for instance, has all been bought by fiat in person. There's no record that I even have it.
Now, Jean-Francois, okay, I agree that the Bitcoin theoretically will survive the situation, but how do you access it during a situation or afterward? Okay.
Billy, that was Brian that was talking about his pre-leach with HCl and sodium percarbonate. So, yeah, that was Brian that was talking about that.
Yeah, and he's leaching, so it's not the
Shane, I'm
recovery.
actually in favor of a bimetallic standard rather than a pure gold standard. Gold is an amazing metal for governments because gold is great for really big purchases. Silver is the best metal for ordinary people.
Entirely possible, Billy.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Well, Jean-Francois, I don't think commodity prices will go down that far. The other thing is, if we get even minor price discovery in our base metals, that's going to do a lot for the precious metals as well. People don't realize there is as much of a connection between copper and the precious metals as there is. Now, I think what's more likely to happen first when it comes to price discovery and mining, etc., is we're going to, like, for instance, if we all woke up tomorrow and silver was $60 an ounce, yay, most of our landfills will become mines. I mean, mining will not be confined to the ground, okay? And there will be different plateaus of price discovery. There will also be different plateaus of price discovery. We're not going to see to the moon with no stops in between. But I don't think we're ever going to see the in the toilet prices on things like copper, gold, silver that, for instance, rhodium was at 20,000 an ounce for a while, and it's now at 4,500. But that is such a really, really low market that it's ridiculous, you know.
Well, another thing I'm thinking, Jean-Francois, is even though the prices may come down dramatically, the question is how fast. Are they going to come down literally overnight? Or is it going to be something that it will be predictable over time?
And it should also be noted that prices going in the toilet in a sound money system operates differently than prices going in the toilet in a fiat system. They're two entirely different things. We prepare financially / economically differently within a fiat debt instrument environment than you do in a sound money environment. And yeah, Billy, I mean, Bitcoin, as I said,
Yeah,
I
Billy,
mean,
I agree.
personally, the goddess only has altcoins and some very fractional Bitcoin that I got basically for nothing. I was doing a research project on making money watching videos and reading emails, and they paid in cryptocurrency. Okay, and this was way back when, like, Litecoins were $15 for one whole Litecoin. Stuff like that. It's sitting in Coinbase. The reason it has not come into my bank now is quite simple. When I went to Coinbase and I told them I wanted to transfer it to a bank account, they wanted more identification from me than I needed to open a bank account. Okay? They actually thought I was going to give them pictures of my freaking passport or give them photos of my driver's license front and back to get those coins. And no, I'm not going to spend 50, 60, 80, $100 or whatever it costs to buy a cold wallet to put them on. Because to me, it's just not worth it. I'm not going to spend more than is in there to get it in my possession. I'm also not going to give up my privacy to get it in my possession. That's all there is to it. Now, if I had a source for more Bitcoin or more cryptocurrencies and altcoins, cheap or free, as in I'm not spending my money on them, I'm getting them for doing something, then I might buy a cold wallet and start doing that. But I don't see any reason to.
Okay. To answer your question, Jean-Francois, with the EPA and OSHA being wiped out, first of all, a lot of rules are also parallel enforced by states. but you also need investment capital, and a big company is going to have to be concerned about a Wild West situation. If there's no regulation, there's no government.
The
And is
underground
that going-
copper silver ratio is an entirely different matter.
Okay, shush. And so they might not want to invest billions of dollars in new mining projects or whatever. So it becomes a question. Assuming that investment capital is not a limiting factor, then it's the speed with which new production can be bought online in terms of equipment purchases, equipment installation, milling installation, water supply installation, things like that. And that typically takes several years to bring on substantial new production capability. But it would be relatively rapid, I would agree. You know? And as I say, when it comes to the crypto, if you were trying to leave Canada, it would be a lot easier to leave it with $10 million worth of crypto than $10 million worth of gold. You know, so your situations can define what is the most plausible thing for you personally. I think that, again, they're complementary. They don't fulfill the exact same purposes, although they can. And that's kind of how that. Say, in terms of mining landfills, there becomes a material separation issue. But if it becomes important enough, they'll do it. The thing is, right now, it's so much cheaper just to mine coal and drill for oil and stuff like that, that it's more expensive to mine a landfill. That's it. So, say, I don't have a problem with crypto, but I know that crypto, it is possible to lose it completely and instantaneously and without warning.
Exactly, Shane. If I had a lot of money in Bitcoin, every time it did hit a new all-time high, some of that, a percentage, would have gone to getting into something real.
Well, and the question is, where would you put that real stuff too?
I mean,
You diversify where?
Mr. Virtue, I'll tell you right now, I'm hoping one of these days he takes me to our local solid waste transfer station, because I have heard rumors, and I want to see if it's true, that they don't actually pay attention to whether you take stuff out or not. You see, down in Tucson, we had this big, beautiful dump, Los Reales. Gorgeous place. The recycling trucks would come in and line up so that they could dump the recyclables in the dump, in the sanitary landfill / solid waste transfer station. The thing about Los Reales is they also had dozens of employees sitting there in their little trucks, watching to make sure that all you did was throw shit away. You would get in big, big trouble if you tried to pick up even one freaking aluminum can off the ground. It was disgusting.
Where I was on the
me off
landfill,
anyway.
there was times I grabbed stuff. I just did it very quietly. Nobody really cared. After all, they're government employees.
Yeah.
Do they really care? When I was in Yuma, at the remote solid waste transfer station over by the Gila River, the guy who ran the station was also, no doubt, making bank off of stuff people were throwing. Because when you would show up to throw stuff away, he would look at your load and say, yeah, put this over there and that over there and this over there, and then throw the rest in the roll-off. Because, you know, around quitting time, some guy's coming up from San Luis, Sonora with a big truck, loading shit in and handing him money.
And you see another aspect of that. I grew up spending my summers in Maine.
Mm-hmm.
And in Maine, in a lot of New England, you buy a dump sticker. It's a little sticker you put on your vehicle from your county or from your city. That's a nominal fee that gives you permission to throw your trash in the landfill. And then when you take trash to the landfill, they charge you by the pound or by the ton for this trash, okay? Well, a lot of these small towns have what they call a green store. It's an area right outside the landfill scale where you can put paints and you can put all kinds of stuff, like furniture, anything that can be repaired, anything somebody else might want. You can put it there to lighten the load so that all you're paying for going into the landfill is actual trash that nobody really wants. And anybody else can come to the green store. You don't even have to be a city resident. Anybody, whether you got a sticker or not, can go to the green store and pick up anything they want, free and for nothing.
Which makes reasonable sense. As opposed to Whatcom County, Washington, where we used to live for a while, where you haul your trash to the dump or waste transfer facility, you pay by the pound to get rid of it, but you're also supposed to segregate your recyclables and put them in separate containers, such as you put aluminum cans in a separate container, but you pay to put those aluminum cans in the container. That's like so, and they wondered why people were dumping trash alongside the roads.
Yeah.
Gee, I wonder why.
I mean, I personally would love to be able to mine a landfill. I mean, these guys thought it was all, they think it's all so funny, him and Lauren and everybody else think I'm so funny because every time I see an old mine dump, I'm like, oh, cool, oh, artifacts. I'm like that everywhere. He can tell you, I love dumpster diving. And I cannot believe that dumpster diving is actually illegal in Helena. We got to get that changed. Okay? Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, Resort Dog, is as price discovery happens in metals and as there are all kinds of upward pressures on metals prices. There are downward pressures too. Well, it's a constant in any economy.
Yeah.
Right now, the downward pressures are having more influence than the upward pressure. At some point, that dynamic changes, and when it changes, all kinds of interesting things can happen. And I can really see I can see the first thing that happens before mining explodes again would be recycling technology explodes. Because we have all this shit sitting around that already is effectively, it's out of the ground. It just needs to be dealt with. Plus, a company could get great PR points for cleaning up the planet. Plus, they could probably get government grant money for cleaning up the planet or whatever. So I think the first push we're going to see is an expansion, and maybe even a drastic expansion, in recycling technology. And then we're also going to see on the larger industrial scale an expansion in mining technology. And yeah, I think it is controlled. And yes, the nickel run, they cheated, okay? They totally cheated on that. That was ridiculous. But all these metal prices are controlled. They are controlled and they are manipulated. And the main reason they can do that is because we have a fiat economy and because they developed paper commodities markets, which are absolutely bullshit. They should not be able to sell a contract on metals that says you get 5,000 ounces of gold if they don't have 5,000 ounces of physical gold. There should not be dozens of pages in that contract you signed for COMEX that give them an out to pay you in fiat rather than give you your physical gold or your physical silver. You should not be able to do that with any commodity. If somebody buys 5,000 bushels of wheat, they should not be able to pay you cash instead of wheat. Because if you wanted cash, well, you would have gotten cash. You're buying wheat because you want wheat. You're buying a 5,000 ounce contract of silver or gold, ostensibly, because you want them. And yes, derivatives are an absolute scandal. They can only exist because fiat economy. But that's the thing. We don't know what's going to be coming.
Yeah.
Except that it's going to be really bad. And yeah, that's the thing. They are, in some senses, counting on something big to happen because, well, Rhett Butler said it actually in, well, to paraphrase the issue, and Rhett wasn't the only person to ever notice it, but in Gone with the Wind, he made a point that you make fast money in the collapse of a civilization.
Mm-hmm.
You make slow money in the growth of a civilization. So yeah, all the people that have gotten us in this mess are going to clean up when everything explodes. Because that's generally the way it works.
Yep. Anyhow,
But meanwhile, gold and silver are still on sale. So I suggest you get some.
any other questions vis-a-vis mining or anything like that? I'm really glad to see the gentleman from Australia here putting in some information for Brian. And
Hopefully Brian sees it.
I say it's been an interesting one. Usually a lot of people drop out when we start chatting about other stuff, but I think people are looking at this election going, yeah, maybe we ought to start thinking about some other stuff for the moment. You know? And I think that's the situation right now. It is distracting me for sure in terms of the immediate future. I'm concerned about things. I'm doing what I can to help out by being an observer and stuff. But next week may be a real interesting Monday. Okay. Real interesting indeed. I also noticed, little one, that Steven Crowder is going to have Election Day live stream where they're going to have a lot of other information. They must be spending a lot of money to get a lot of information and stuff. That could be kind of interesting too. So anyhow, anyone got anything real quick? Thank you for waiting, honey. Ready? We haven't seen anything yet, one way or another. So I want to thank everyone for showing up. I want to thank Eva for being such a happy scavenger out there when there's stuff like that. Her enthusiasm just brings a smile to my face and Lauren's face too. And we had an interesting week. Hopefully we'll get some answers this week. We'll be working on 3 different projects right now. The 1,000-liter test, the X-ray film test, and the partially loaded resin cartridge test. With any luck, we'll have answers to all 3 of those next week. And we may be up in the field again. We shall see what we shall see. Go ahead, honey. Yep, I agree, Shane. You also got to have food, though. The people in the city's got to have everything, and that's where I'm wondering what's going to happen. That's why we moved out here to Helena, Montana. Happy prospecting and keep it safe out there. Okay, little one.